Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. It is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. I'd like to extend my gratitude in you listening to this podcast. It means everything to me, and I hope it is clear that this subject matter is so important to me. I care about our people, our future, and making a positive change in this nation. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Walk by Accident podcast. Today we have a special guest, Cameron Chambers, who works in behavior health from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Welcome, Cameron. Tell us a few words.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a long time coming. I haven't recorded with you in a while, so it's
Oh,
good to be here.
yeah, good to have you back on the show. You guys may remember Cameron has done some of the end of the year reviews in years past and some of the very first season episodes. So definitely glad to have Cameron back with us as we close out Mental Health Awareness Month. I wanted to have him on to have a conversation from a mental health standpoint regarding the Buffalo and Uvalde shootings. We have the two gunmen who were classified as loners who did not have a record yet they committed these horrible violent acts. So wanted to kind of dive into this scenario a little deeper, looking at the mental health standpoint. Could these actions possibly be a tribute to a health break?
Yeah, I would just pretty much say so. I do work in behavioral health,
Mhm.
and I deal with all kinds of people from bipolar, schizophrenic, but I just work on the side of doing discharges from hospitals, from behavioral health only hospitals. And honestly, I do think that this is a mental health issue. I wouldn't call it a break. Something like, to me, break kind of means snap. Like you just really just couldn't take something and you just woke up one day and just snapped. I think these are people who been sick for a long time. I mean, you got somebody that wrote 100 and something page document on how he was going to do something. He wrote, racial slurs on guns. He even legally bought guns.
Right.
Um, I think that yes, a mental health issue, but I wouldn't call it a break.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely in the case in Buffalo with Payton Gen, Gendron, it seemed like he definitely was planned out. Definitely with the documentation, with him incorporating social media, him engaging with the members of a Discord group before the act, him putting the gun there before, and all of that definitely seemed like a calculated plan. Was at hand. However, it just seems interesting that, we're hearing from all of these officials that, there was a mental health issue going on. So I definitely want to explore that possibility since there's so much talk of that.
There's always going to be that narrative anytime a mass shooting happens. And I hate to bring up demographics, but it's different for all of us. And
Hmm.
I think that that's another thing. He chose his population very carefully.
Mm,
I think that race and hatred, it can be a mental health issue, but it needs to be one that's punished too. I mean, racism is, it's a hate crime. So, I mean, it's hard to really tie mental health in with hate crimes, like
right.
because you're supposed to get charged for a hate crime, but you can't get charged because every time you commit a hate crime, they say you need a mental health evaluation. So
Right.
it's
And so that's a good point. You brought up the mental evaluation. During his senior year, he made this really significant threat during an online class chat, suggesting murder and such. And, they did take it serious enough where they did go through a psych evaluation and admit him, but he was released and there were no charges filed and he was able to walk in his graduation parade and carry on with his graduation proceedings and carry out the rest of his year. So, do you see that as a missed opportunity, and possibly could this attack been avoided?
I do see I see it as a missed opportunity. And another
Mhm.
question, I don't know if I read over it or didn't read it. Did nobody really talk about the results of his psych evaluation? I didn't see
Mm,
anything about the results, but I don't like to use when it comes to targeting a group of people.
mhm.
I don't ever want to take the focus off of race because I don't want mental health to overtake race in this
Right.
situation. But I will say nobody said anything about psych evaluations. So it was a missed opportunity. They should have took that. And then what were the threats? Like who did he threaten? I didn't see that. If he was threatening groups of African Americans again or something. So that was a missed opportunity. But
Hmm.
I think this particular attack couldn't have been avoided because he just graduated, which means he probably could be in a psych hospital right now. But I don't think this incident could have been avoided altogether, whether it was Buffalo or somebody else later. I mean, if you wrote 100 and something page document on this and you literally bought guns and stuff, you were going to do it whether it was Buffalo or somewhere else. So,
Right. Right. It just makes me think that with regards to his graduation, like, maybe his parents saw how close he was to graduation and they
mm,
made sure, or maybe they pleaded with, you know, the doctors or whoever that was in charge to let him get by this so that he could graduate. You know what I mean? Like maybe they, made sure or he was, looked out for or something
well, if it's
because
something like that, that needs to be brought to the table too, because they could. I mean, somebody had to know that he had this much hate for a group of people. It's hard to hide this much. You on the computer site, you writing all these documents. You gotta have some type. You say you're a loner, but you could be in groups, hate groups online. Somebody had to know
oh yeah.
that. Yeah. So yeah. So
Right.
it.
In those groups that he were communicating online, there's people all over the world that were following all these shootings, mass
Mm,
shootings all over the country. And so he built community with these people, which is really kind of sad and disturbing. Where he didn't have, I guess, friends in his town or in his school.
mm,
Online, he, is, building community with these people and really was working on his plan all this time, and
true.
who knows how long it had been going on. So it'd be interesting to see when they get to trial, like all of that coming out, you know.
What is there's something else I left out? He gave us an agenda of why he did what he did. Feared that whites were going to be
Mm.
he said that blacks will be taken over, and he feared that we will be taken over. Apparently, he said whites were diminishing in numbers, and he wanted to prevent that. So he had a motive. That's what I meant. He had a motive for why he did what he did too. So.
Right. Yeah, and you're referring to the replacement theory, is that right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that particular theory.
Yeah, so you tie all that into it. This is something that he's been working on like a project, and honestly, it has to be something really deep. Whether mental health was really strong and it got swept under the rug
Hmm.
with that psych eval, or I mean, because the thing about this is that somebody had to know something for him to be able to get away with planning it.
Yeah.
During quarantine, you locked in the house with your parents, I guess. I mean, how they're not going to know what you're working on?
Yeah, and then I think there was a comment from the parents about attributing this possibly to the pandemic and COVID or what have you. So that was kind of interesting. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, isolation can. So if you got somebody struggling from depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, paranoia,
Mm,
If you take that person and take everything from them and lock them in the house, it can make you get worse. I mean,
mm,
so I'm sure it contributed, but I wouldn't call it, I wouldn't just blame the whole incident on it. But who knows? Like, that's something for a psychiatrist or something. But, if he was already struggling with the thought of us taking over and retaliating, being locked in the house with nothing to do for a couple of years can make you think about it worse. Like my grandma would say, like, an idle mind is the devil's playground. So if you
mm.
already got bad thoughts, now you got to plan to really work on it because we were on lockdown,
Right.
isolated. So
That's true. Yeah, and I see that they're now that he's in custody, there's just one charge. You mentioned that there should be a hate crime charge.
mm,
So hopefully that will be added later. Do you think possibly they could add that later? Perhaps they're still going through evidence or.
I don't know. Like I would say, like they saying basically how they have to. What I don't like is they saying possible hate crime in every
Hmm.
headline. I mean, he clearly wrote racial slurs on his gun. He used that same gun to kill the people he was targeting. But I think they're waiting on the mental health. Are they doing another evaluation right now?
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they must be
So,
waiting on the results and maybe comparing prior and things
mm,
like that. So yeah, definitely you'll
yeah.
be watching that. So that brings us to the Uvalde matter, which really was just so heartbreaking. So many lives lost in the Uvalde shooting. And that gunman is also being classified, as I mentioned, as a loner type of individual, and which really part that struck me is that he made those little comments, to the one teacher. He said good night before shooting her, and then
Mm.
to even making a little statement to the children, it's your time and all of that. What is that a mental break?
Now
Where does.
I could think of that unless they found documents from years and years and years of planning. This seemed like because then he shoot his grandma in the face right
He
before
did.
going to do. I could see this more as a mental break than the other one. I mean,
Okay.
and just but I'm so shocked at why he chose elementary. That's kind of. I don't think there's a lot out there about him. It's like because I mean, but I could see that as a break more. Because see, this guy from Buffalo, he didn't hurt anybody else except for who he intended. This
Mhm.
person shot his grandmother and anybody else that was in his way. The one in Buffalo chose who he was going to shoot.
Right. And I guess the other thing that we have for this Uvalde case is that he made these little posts on Instagram, kind of like bragging with the gun. And then he
Mm,
made some little post to a female, kind of like, oh, watch what I'm going to do. And something to that effect of, I guess, a warning, if you will. So it's almost maybe
mm.
another missed opportunity. Is that right? Possibly.
I would think it's a missed opportunity. I mean, when you look at some of these kids, I think like I don't like to blame parents for everything because
Mhm.
I know parents personally who were great parents and did all they could.
Mhm.
Mental health is a real thing. I mean, some people
Yes.
just have it, and I think we underestimate. Like if you've never struggled with mental health, you won't understand it. So, or if you've never seen it in person, I think that sometimes you just can't blame parents, but I will say that some parents just didn't pay attention to their kids. I looked at the guy's picture that shot up the elementary school,
Mm-hmm.
and you could see that he needed something. I mean, I don't like the judge, but he looked like he really needed somebody. You could see just like evilness in him, both of them really.
Yeah, and then I heard from one of the accounts from the children, and it's amazing how they just, can recount. I mean, obviously they can comprehend just as well,
Mhm.
but I mean, that's such a traumatic event to go through, and to be able to share the details, but I mean, really, they're the ones that went through, so they have to tell us what went
Hmm.
on. But they said that he was playing sad music, like music like the world's gonna end type music, and so that's very telling too. If so it's almost like he was trying to create a scene or something, you
And if
know.
you, in the way he ran into the school, if you got somebody that's ready to die,
Hmm.
that means they do have some mental health things going on. If you're willing to just to hurt these kids that you don't even know, you'll put your own life on the line just to hurt some random people.
Right.
But and he had a history of buying a bunch of these guns
Mm.
online. How are you that young? And where are you hiding all of these guns at? I mean,
Yeah.
like, that's a missed opportunity too, because if you're 18 and you're living in my house, I'm sorry, I'm going in your stuff sometimes. You need to know what's in your house.
And that's the
So,
thing. We need to do that as
mhm,
parents and guardians. We need to know what kids are into, what they're looking at online, right?
mhm,
And that brings me to another thought I wanted to get your way in. Having these conversations with children. We talked about how the children on the news reports are sharing about what happened, and then having conversations with the children in our lives. They're seeing what the news is saying, and they're seeing the alerts. They have
mhm.
questions. What would be your advice to have a healthy yet realistic conversation with children in our lives?
Really, it just depends on their age. I
Hmm.
think like once you first, even if you're like, I'll throw a number out there like 10 years old or something, I would just ask them, hey, do you see what's going on out there? Like, what do you feel about this? And
Hmm.
just let them tell you what they feel versus just going in, throwing all this information at them that they probably could have lived without. But it's hard because on the flip side, you want them to understand and know, what to do in situations like this, but you don't want to cause them trauma at the same time if they already don't know. So I would just ask them to give me their understanding of what happened. I would say, do you see what happened? Are they talking about it at school?
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Hmm.
And just let them talk and then go from there. I mean,
Yeah, I love that. One report I saw was that the news anchor, which was a man, went to interview the child, but the parent didn't want the child to be on film, and then the child wasn't comfortable with having a conversation with the anchor because he was a male, so he had to have the producer, who was a female, conduct the interview. So I thought that was interesting that the child just was traumatized, and I guess that may have been a trigger, perhaps, with just a male asking you what's going on, tell me this, and she had the interaction with the gunman. So
well, I mean, stuff like that. I mean, something that's another example that somebody could struggle with the rest of their lives.
yes,
There's some women out there that's afraid of men because a man has hurt them in the past. So
yes,
that kid probably don't want to talk to a man because that's who done it. That's who committed the crime. So,
yes, I thought that was so deep, and like, oh, it just made me sad, but that's
mhm.
real. That yeah, triggers are real, it
Yeah, I
really
mean,
is.
I can only imagine the parents what they have to deal with. I mean, the ones who lost their kids because yeah, but I think it's really hard to have that conversation with kids
Mhm.
because you don't want to make them feel like it's never going to happen to them where they're naive and not looking out. But you also don't want to make them where they're scared to go live a normal life. So you just got to kind of just see what they understand already and teach them from there.
That's true. And I love how even right after the event, that there's encouraging the children to be advocates and activists, even with going out right in the face
Mm-hmm.
of the NRA
Mm-hmm.
rally, and goes right out there across the street from it, and and they weren't scared, and they just, and they were lifting up the children, honoring them. I thought that was really a great demonstration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Anything else to add on the Uvalde matter as far as the mental health concerns and things like that?
No, I mean, even if, like, I don't even have kids, but with my nieces and nephews, I make sure to give them the space to talk to me. I get all in their business. I call my sister and see what's going on with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we just got to pay more attention to the kids.
Right, for sure. Definitely. There was another case that happened earlier in May that was really heartbreaking that I wanted to share with the listeners. And it occurred at Southern University. A Southern University cheerleader ended her life and posted a goodbye letter on Instagram. There's an article on Black Enterprise that details this, and it's I'm sad, I guess, just she references dealing with stress and the pandemic, and I guess things got unbearable for her, and she actually says she's sorry, and like calls out and mentions several family members and things like that, but she ultimately did take her life, and that occurred on May 4th. And let's see her name, because we do want to acknowledge her. Arlana Miller was her name, and she was a cheerleader at Southern University. She was 19 years old. What did you think about this story? She's a freshman.
This was really, really, really sad because now I am not suicidal, nothing that I don't feel that way, but I can see where her stress can come from
Mm-hmm.
and I can tell I read the note that she left, and it reminds you of something that happens to a lot of us, um, young people, because for instance, you take someone, like she says, she's always there for people.
Mm-hmm.
She don't have anybody to go to. When you think about somebody, I'm sure she was an attractive young girl, cheerleader,
Mm-hmm.
popular. It seems like people take their mental health a lot less serious than you would take
Mm.
somebody like a loner already. She's probably been crying out for help for a long time. And, first I want to say condolences, and my respects to her family. But to me, some people blame suicide victims, but I feel like that's them really in a desperate place crying out for help I feel like they've tried almost everything they could possibly try, and just, yeah, I mean, that's why you got to set strong boundaries with family and everything, because even with your job, when you get really, really stressed out at work, you got to just tell your boss, look, I'm overwhelmed, I need to take a step back.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to tell yourself, if you don't like what I'm doing at work, then fire me. You don't want to get fired, but if it started really affecting your mental health so bad, it's taking over your life. Life itself is already, if you think about it, you have to worry about keeping up with all your bills, keeping your house clean, keeping your car clean, eating, trying to take care of. You got to deal with a lot every day. So you
Right.
got to eliminate some of the stuff. And she just probably didn't know how to balance everything.
That's true. It seems like a lot of kids are, especially during the pandemic, has had a negative effect on our college students, especially the ones that went away to school for the first
Hmm.
time. What, how can, in your opinion, how could we support these students that have went away to college for the first time and having a difficult time?
So I would be honest, like, I'm in my 30s and I
Mhm.
live far away from my family. I struggle because during quarantine, you can call your family every day and they can tell you they wearing their masks. They can tell you they're being safe. You don't really know what they're doing. So you already got, I've been gone from home since 2007.
Oh, wow.
So you got this kid that's going home away for the first time in their lives. and this is what they get. You can't even go home to see your family. I would try to hook them up with communities, let them know they're not alone, try to build communities online, and let them know there's other people in your same college, same situation, just like you, and try to start a support group. But it's hard to tell somebody, don't worry about your family back home, so
That's true.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough situation, but I guess you want to keep the communication lines open and try
Mhm.
to stay in touch as much as possible too, because if you're
Mhm.
not hearing from them, you don't know what they're dealing with and that they're
Mhm.
struggling. And that's, a horrible thought that, someone that you care
Mhm.
about is struggling and you don't even know about it.
And it's hard to give advice on how to deal with what we went through, because we all got to give ourselves a pat on the back, because we lost almost 1 million people, like, and
Yeah,
we made it, so we should be happy that we at least made it through. I mean, but it's hard because some people lost their mom, their
mhm,
dad, their brothers, and so it's hard because, yeah, I mean, we literally went through something that's going down as history, so
that's true.
we still need time to recover.
We do. And I just, the whole college experience, it can be traumatic enough. And, a lot of I didn't actually, well, I went away, but I didn't go very far. But I literally talked to my mother like every day. I called home every single day. And
Yeah.
like, so it makes me really sad that she felt like she couldn't call or pick up the phone and call somebody to
Mhm.
say, hey, I'm going through this, I need to vent or whatever. I didn't have a whole lot of friends, but I did have, one person I could
Mhm.
vent to. um so
But see,
definitely.
that's the misunderstanding that probably took her out. When you're a cheerleader, people assume you're popular and you
Mhm.
already got built-in friends, and you probably do. But when you're dealing with depression,
Yeah,
you could be in a room of 15 people and feel like you're there alone. So,
that's true.
and when she probably reached back home trying to reach out to her family, you in college and you're a cheerleader and this and that, people assume that you're okay because they think you're popular and they see you as the strong one. And
That's true.
you, yeah, so people don't give you a lot of sympathy. They just say, oh, look at this popular person, they just want attention, you know
Yeah, and
uh,
she probably didn't want her family to worry, especially if maybe
mhm,
first generation, going to college, and oh, I don't want them to worry. They went through all that trouble to get me in
mhm,
school, and that's the thing. We take on all of that. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Like you said, you have to say, "Hey, I need a minute. I need to step back. Like this is too
mhm.
much."
Yeah, I feel terrible for her though. I feel
Yeah,
terrible for anybody that decides to end their life. That means that's their final resort, like final.
hmm,
They just couldn't take it no more. And I feel
yeah.
bad for that.
Definitely. There are resources available if people feel those type of feelings, so you don't have to go through those type of things alone. You definitely can reach out. There's many resources available. So yeah, I'm glad we shared that story because I haven't been hearing a whole lot about that even earlier in the month as
Mhm.
we close out Mental Health Awareness Month. Let's see, anything else to share regarding Mental Health Awareness Month?
No, just make sure you're taking care of yourself. Like, for instance, quarantine really threw me off. So
Hmm.
I made sure when I was, as soon as I can, get back outside, try to stay busy, and just don't get too comfortable,
Yeah,
being stuck in the house. I mean, I'm still learning how to get out there. Like, people invite me places and
yeah.
I just want to hide from them. I want to hide. So I force myself to get out now
Okay.
because.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And then like take time for self care, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, that's great. And anything else to share?
Nope. Just thanks for having me. I had fun on here today.
Oh, great. I'm glad that you agreed to come back on. Always a pleasure. You're welcome here anytime. And yes, guys. Oh, and then can people reach out to you on social media?
Yeah, on Instagram, Cam Orlando _.
Okay, let me because I bam.
There we go. Yep, that's it. Perfect.
Okay, so you guys can reach out to Cameron on Instagram if you have questions or you want to reach out for any questions or anything. It's good to
Yep.
build community, you know? So, yeah,
Yep.
let's do that as people and build community. So, I thank you guys for listening
See
and
everybody.
we'll take care. We got an outro. At this time, we're going to go ahead and conclude the episode. We greatly appreciate you listening. We invite you to follow us on social media. On Instagram, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. On Twitter, it is Woke by. On Facebook, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. We also have the new website up, www.wokebyaccident.net. Please check us out and also follow us on all of your favorite streaming platforms, and please leave a review and share feedback. You can also reach out by Gmail, wokebyaccident@gmail.com. And every time you listen, we appreciate it so much. Thank you for listening and take care.